Chapter 2. Will Graham drove slowly past the house where the Charles Leeds family had lived and died. The windows were dark. One yard light burned. He parked 2 blocks away and walked through the warm night, carrying the Atlanta Police Detective's report in a cardboard box. Graham had insisted on coming alone. Anyone else in the house would distract him. That was the reason he gave Crawford. He had another, private reason. He was not sure how he would act. He didn't want a face aimed at him all the time. He had been all right at the morgue. The 2-story brick home was set back from the street on a wooded lot. Graham stood under the trees for a long time looking at it. He tried to be still inside. In his mind, a silver pendulum swung in darkness. He waited until the pendulum was still. A few neighbors drove by, looking at the house quickly and looking away. A murder house is ugly to the neighbors, like the face of someone who betrayed them. Only outsiders and children stare. The shades were up. Graham was glad. That meant no relatives had been inside. Relatives always lowered the shades. He walked around the side of the house, moving carefully, not using his flashlight. He stopped twice to listen. The Atlanta police knew he was here, but the neighbors did not. They might be jumpy. They might shoot. Looking in a rear window, he could see all the way through to the light in the front yard, past silhouettes of furniture. The scent of Cape jasmine was heavy in the air. A latticed porch ran across most of the back. On the porch door was the seal of the Atlanta Police Department. Graham removed the seal and went in. The door from the porch into the kitchen was patched with plywood where the police had taken out the glass. By flashlight, he unlocked it with the key the police had given him. He wanted to turn on lights. He wanted to put on his shiny badge and make some official noises to justify himself to the silent house where 5 people had died. He did none of that. He went into the dark kitchen and sat down at the breakfast table. 2 pilot lights on the kitchen range glowed blue in the dark. He smelled furniture polish and apples. The thermostat clicked and the air conditioning came on. Graham started at the noise, felt a trickle of fear. He was an old hand at fear. He could manage this one. He simply was afraid, and he could go on anyway. He could see and hear better afraid. He could not speak as concisely, and fear sometimes made him rude. Here, there was nobody left to speak to. There was nobody to offend anymore. Madness came into this house through that door into this kitchen, moving on size 11 feet. Sitting in the dark, he sensed madness, like a bloodhound sniffs a shirt. Graham had studied the detective's report at Atlanta homicide for most of the day and early evening. He remembered that the light on the vent hood over the stove had been on when the police arrived. He turned it on now. 2 framed samplers hung on the wall beside the stove. One said, "Kissin' don't last, cookin' do." The other was, "It's always to the kitchen that our friends best like to come, to hear the heartbeat of the house, take comfort in its hum." Graham looked at his watch. 11:30 p.m. According to the pathologist, the deaths occurred between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. First, there was the entry. He thought about that. The madman slipped the hook on the outside screen door, stood in the darkness of the porch, and took something from his pocket. A suction cup, maybe the base of a pencil sharpener designed to stick to a desktop. Crouched against the wooden lower half of the kitchen door, the madman raised his head to peer through the glass. He put out his tongue to lick the cup, pressed it to the glass, and flicked the lever to make it stick. A small glass cutter was attached to the cup, with string so that he could cut a circle. Tiny squeal of the glass cutter, and one solid tap to break the glass. One hand tap, one hand to hold the suction cup. The glass must not fall. The loose piece of glass is slightly egg-shaped because the string wrapped around the shaft of the suction cup he has cut. A little grating sound as he pulls the piece of glass back outside. He does not care that he leaves A.B. saliva on the glass. His hand in the tight glove snakes in through the hole, finds the lock. The door opens slightly. He is inside. In the light of the vent hood, he can see his body in this strange kitchen. It is pleasantly cool in the house. Will Graham ate 2 digels. The crackle of the cellophane irritated him as he stuffed it in his pocket. He walked through the living room, holding his flashlight well away from him by habit. Though he had studied the floor plan, he had one wrong turn before he found the stairs. They did not creak. Now he stood in the doorway of the master bedroom. He could see faintly without the flashlight. A digital clock on a nightstand projected the time on the ceiling, and an orange nightlight burned above the baseboard by the bathroom. The coppery smell of blood was strong. Eyes accustomed to the dark could see well enough. The madman could distinguish Mr. Leeds from his wife. There was enough light for him to cross the room, grab Leeds' hair, and cut his throat. What then? Back to the wall switch, a greeting to Mrs. Leeds, and then the gunshot that disabled her? Graham switched on the lights, and bloodstains shouted at him from the walls, from the mattress and the floor. The very air had screams smeared on it. He flinched from the noise in this silent room, full of dark stains drying. Graham sat on the floor until his head was quiet. Still, still, be still. The number and variety of the bloodstains had puzzled Atlanta detectives trying to reconstruct the crime. All the victims were found slain in their beds. This was not consistent with the locations of the stains. At first, they believed Charles Leeds was attacked in his daughter's room and his body dragged in the master bedroom. Close examination of the splatter patterns made them reconsider. The killer's exact movements in the rooms were not yet determined. Now, with the advantage of the autopsy and lab reports, Will Graham began to see how it happened. The intruder cut Charles Leeds' throat as he lay asleep beside his wife, went back to the hall switch, and turned on the light. Hairs and oil from Mr. Leeds' head were left on the switch plate by a smooth glove. He shot Mrs. Leeds as she was rising, then went toward the children's rooms. Leeds rose with his cut throat and tried to protect the children, losing great gouts of blood and an unmistakable arterial spray as he tried to fight. He was shoved away, fell, and died with his daughter in her room. One of the two boys was shot in bed. The other... Oh, hello! I hope you're all doing well. Hi, Marshall. For all those who are tuning in and are getting a very graphic scene, I am 𝘰𝘳𝘠𝘸𝘸𝘵. I am known as the aristocratic gunman, and I am currently reading Red Dragon by Thomas Harris. Just to, I guess, give the triggered warnings now, this book is pretty graphic and detailed on murder, slaying of families, of children. There's going to be child abuse acknowledged, childhood trauma, sadistic biting. So just so that you're all aware, listener discretion is advised. But it's okay, Marshall. I'm glad that you're here. Yay! So I hope you enjoy the reading because it's going to get really, really